It's seafood the old-fashioned way in the newly renovated Don's Seafood Restaurant. The same Landry family that served your great-grandfather is still here today, serving your family with over 80 years of tradition and taste. Charbroiled oysters, mama's gumbo, fresh fish specials, jacked up shrimp, you name it, they've got it at Don's, 4801 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie. And a pleasant good evening to you, Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv coming at you, and it's so great to have you on this Monday night. Merry Christmas to you, one and all, as we talk about the Saints and college football and high school football and Pelicans and everything else imaginable. We'll get into it, and we'll do so with our outstanding guest panelists who are here each and every week to bring this to you. First and foremost, Torrance Small, former New Orleans Saints wide receiver, former NFL receiver. Torrance, good evening to you.
Hey, how we doing, Ken? Glad to be back. Hey, had some great football in the Dome. Too bad the Saints weren't there, but still it was great games.
Are you saying they didn't show up? Is that?
The Saints weren't there, and it was great football in the Dome.
Okay. All right. Not the Dome we're used to seeing, not the football we're used to seeing. But then again, maybe it is, based on two of the last three games. Brian Allee-Walsh of sportsNOLA.com with us per usual. Brian, good evening to you.
Thanks, Kenny. Always a pleasure to be here with the three wise men.
Is that all you got?
That's it.
Wow. Man. Pro Football Hall of Famer, linebacker par excellence, and outstanding analyst, and downright gentleman, Rickey Jackson with us. As always, Rickey, good evening to you.
Good evening, Dr. Trahan. I tell you what, man, we had a tough day yesterday in the city for, the Saints, but, this week was count. I mean, anytime you get a loss like that, you got to look for next week. And next week is a big week anyhow.
Well, I got a prescription as being a doctor, and my prescription is, it's got to be a painkiller at this point, right, Brian? I mean, what else could you possibly prescribe?
Exactly.
A painkiller?
MD. You didn't know you were an MD.
Bring it home.
I know.
Bring it back home.
All right.
When we're home, we're okay.
Okay.
As you can see, we've been on a roller coaster. Down in Seattle, back up against Carolina, back down again.
That's
hey, hold on, it's a ride.
That's the good news, but you're not home this week, so stay tuned as they go to Charlotte. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back to look at the lowlights of the Saints and the Panthers when we continue with sportsNOLAtv from Don's Seafood at 4801 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie and right here on WHNO Channel 20. Pretty obvious statistic there. You turn it over that many times in a game, and you're going to lose. And the Saints did, and they did. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv from Don's Seafood at 4801 Veterans in Metairie. Well, the Saints losing, and they earned it. Make no mistake about it. They were lousy in every phase of the game against a sub-500 team and a team that will not have a winning record for a 10th consecutive season. Everything was set for the Saints. They knew what they had to do. They had the crowd pretty much in their favor in St. Louis, and it didn't make any difference. They did not show up, and their coach took the blame after the game, and rightly he should give him credit for standing up, but he's right. They weren't ready to play, and Torrance, that was very obvious, and it's inexplicable, it's inexcusable, and it's dumbfounding. How do you explain this?
It's hard to explain when we're playing this type of ball, especially away. If you look at the Saints, we played in Seattle, we were terrible. We come back home, we're like Superman. And we go back on the road against not even a subpar team. Like you say, this team has not had a winning season in the last 10 years with a backup quarterback, and we come and we didn't execute it at all. We didn't do anything at all. How you explain that? I don't know. Maybe it's just being away from the Dome. Home sweet Dome, as they always say. Maybe there's some truth into that.
Brian, this team had 23 points total in their last two games. They've been held to 15 or fewer points 5 times, and yet they had their way with the Saints defense. Why?
It was eerily similar, Kenny, to the game in 2011 when they lost 31-21. And, I don't know. Maybe these guys have an explanation. I don't know if Sean Payton has an explanation for it, Kenny, because they win and they're in the playoffs. I mean, there was plenty to play for. They've got a team that's breathing down their neck in the division. There was plenty of reason to go to St. Louis and play well. For no other reason, and they're going to be continuing to hear that they can't play on the road. Well, until you do play well and win on the road in an environment like, God, I wouldn't even think the Dome was that environment.
No, it wasn't.
You know, but until you do that, you're going to hear about that, and it's disturbing, Kenny. It really is.
Well, they're 3-4 on the road, and keep in mind, they really should have lost to Tampa.
Yeah.
They very well could be 2-5. They stole that game, a game they really shouldn't have won. Ricky, when I look at this defense, their defensive line was a non-factor. They didn't touch Clemens. Their linebackers got washed. Their secondary didn't cover anybody, and they tackled terribly. And in the last 7 games, the Saints have only created, 2 turnovers? I mean, again, while this defense has played well, they're not getting turnovers, and they certainly didn't play well yesterday.
I mean, they didn't play well. They gave up a little more than what they wanted to give up. But the whole key to it was turnover. I mean, anytime a team get 3 turnovers more than you get, that's going to be tough for your defense. So that's what happened yesterday. When the Saints gave the ball up, the team had the ball in a good position. So a lot of times they're going to get field goals or touchdown regardless. So that was the key to it yesterday.
Torrance, it's obvious that the Saints couldn't block this Rams defensive front. We feared that coming in. It turned out to be true. And again, this gets back to that offensive line, which to me is still the weakest part of this football team.
Yes, we're not as strong, but when you give up Pro Bowlers the way we have the last few years, we're giving up a lot on the offensive line. We're giving away a lot. You probably can go back the last 6 years, we're giving up a lot of good offensive linemen. To continue to replace those guys is very hard, and it's showing right now. We got beat up. We got beat up bad offensively and defensively in the front line.
Brian, the Saints threw 56 passes. You're not going to win when that happens. In fact, the Saints are 1-9 when Breeze throws 50 or more passes, and they only ran it 20 times. They had no chance at balance. One call was obvious, 3rd and 1, and they threw a pass and they got sacked. When Quinn sacked Breeze, he wasn't respecting the run at all. They knew they weren't going to run, even though it was 3rd and 1.
Yeah, you know, Kenny, what's disturbing and is that here they have a problem at left tackle, and they're 14 games in, and they've got a problem at left tackle. Who is it going to be? Charles Brown, you hope that they can recoup him, but you never know. They move Bryce Harris over to right and move Zach Strief over to left. At this stage of the season, there's so much at stake, you don't want to be messing with that left tackle position because he protects Drew Brees.
Let's take a look at some statistics from the game, give you a little thumbnail sketch of the numbers from this contest. They really are misleading because the Saints padded their yardage in the second half with the outcome decided. And then you see the breakdown of runs and passes. Rams had real balance, Saints did not. Saints did not run the ball. Sacks were big. And then the red zone trips, obviously a real problem. In fact, Ricky, the Saints had 6 penetrations into the red zone, and they only scored 16 points. 6 penetrations, 16 points. That will not get it done.
Well, I mean, the defense was great yesterday by the Rams, and they came to play the Saints. Now, some teams have your number. If you look at the way football goes, some teams just have your number. It looked like the last 5 or 6 times they done played us, they had our number. But, a lot of people talking about the Tiger. I think that they got probably a year away, a good off season and a good workout, get him big and stronger. I think he'll be good. I mean, he's not one of the premier Tigers in football. And, he's not getting paid like one of the premier Tiger football. So I look for him to get a lot better this offseason.
Looks like we've seen a blueprint for playing the Saints. Play too deep, double Jimmy Graham, and try to rush the passer with your 4 men, and that's what the Rams were able to do, much like Seattle.
Well, you can do that when the Saints are away from the Dome. You can do that, but I don't think that'll work in the Dome. I just think it's an energy level they're not coming out with, because I know in the Dome, I know that defensive front 4 play a lot better. I know the offensive line plays a little bit better because we played against a hell of a defense last week in Carolina and played a hell of a game. I know these guys have the capability of doing it. It just didn't show up this game. Why? The energy level wasn't there. The Rams were ready for this game. We weren't ready. And one thing about the NFL, it's a long season. It's not over until it's over. And you have to go out and play every game. You have to forget about the good and the bad, the past. And that's what we have to do with this game coming up this weekend. Forget about the past and get ready for this game coming up.
It's another indication, Brian, that if Breeze doesn't play above average on the road, the Saints are not going to win.
And Torrance brought it up off air, Kenny, is that not only did the offensive line not play well, but the defensive line didn't play well. Kellen Clemens, I think he's still waiting to be touched for the first time. He wasn't touched last night. And here's a guy that's been sacked, I think, 18 times prior 6 games, if my numbers are correct.
That's right.
You know, and you know, they've got to put pressure on Kellen Clemens, and they haven't done it. And that, you know, so when Sean Payton says it was an ugly win, or excuse me, ugly loss, it was ugly every phase of the game.
Well, it really was. It was a terrible performance, and the result was obvious. We'll take a time out here. When we return in just a moment, we'll take a trip around the NFL and review what happened and give you our take on some of the better performances as sportsNOLAtv continues from Don Seafood in Metairie on WHNO Channel 20. Our sportsNOLA.com trivia question of the evening. On Saturday, Tulane will play in its first bowl game since winning the 2002 Hawaii Bowl. Who was the last Tulane coach to lose a bowl game? Should not be that difficult. With all due respect, I haven't been to too many of them, so think about it, and we'll have the answer for you a little bit later on in the show. And I don't mean that to be derogatory at all. It's just simple fact. So we'll get into it a little bit later and give you that answer. Ken Trahan, Don Seafood in Metairie, as we continue on with our NFL segment as we take a look around the league and what transpired this past week in the NFL. Of course, the Thursday night special, San Diego shot Denver in the Mile High City by 7. Atlanta edged Washington by 1. Kirk Cousins played well in a losing cause. Chicago, with Jay Cutler back, outscored Cleveland in cold weather. Indianapolis trashed hapless Houston. It was Buffalo over Jacksonville. Miami held on, big win at home against the Patriots. Minnesota dealt Philadelphia a blow, scoring 48. Seattle went to the Meadowlands and shut out the Giants, picking off Eli Manning 5 times. San Francisco destroyed Tampa Bay. Carolina beat the hapless Jets. Oakland got swamped by Kansas City, who put 56 on them. What a rally by Green Bay to beat Dallas by 1. That's the talk of the nation today. Arizona kept the Saints from clinching a playoff berth. They won in overtime against Tennessee. Pittsburgh took care of the Bengals, hurt Cincinnati, and then the Monday night special is Baltimore and Detroit. So with the results in, Brian, tell us about what impressed you the most.
Kenny, I'm going to go back to the Thursday night game. I'm going to go back to San Diego and Denver. San Diego went to Sports Authority Field at Mile High Stadium and beat the Broncos by a touchdown on their home turf. And I tell you what, you look at Phillip Rivers in San Diego and you go, where's this team been? But to beat the Broncos at home, I thought that was a big win.
Torrance?
A lot to choose from because there's a lot of these games had playoff meaning. The one that sticks out to me is going to be Green Bay and Dallas. Dallas saw that Philadelphia had lost earlier in that day, and they needed that win. And the way they gave it up at the end, I thought it was bad for them. I don't know what's going to happen with this team. They just keep proving, like the Saints are proving, we can't win on the road. They can't win in December.
Rick?
I'll tell you what, the Miami Dolphins, I just like my hometown team. You know what I mean? They keep fighting, they win, and New England came down and they held on to beat New England. Tom Brady came back at the end and didn't get it done, and Miami still got a chance.
Well, Rickey stole my thunder. I was going to say the Miami Dolphins. I think that the Dolphins win was the most significant of the day. They beat a team that had the best record in the AFC, and now they're a game behind Denver as a result of losing that game. And I know New England has injuries, but Miami had a drive to win the game when they had the opportunity, and they did. Tannehill led them on a game-winning march, and then their defense managed to stand up one last time. But Tom Brady's offense picked them off to win the game. This is a Miami team that had all the distractions and problems with Incognito and Martin, and here they are in the playoff chase. So I give them a lot of credit.
First time having a quarterback since Dan Marino.
Yeah, that's right. They got a guy that's playing good football, right?
Kenny, you're right. I mean, Joe Philbin should be applauded for keeping that team together when, you know, with all that controversy in the locker room and outside, and he's kept that team together.
Let's take a look now at the NFC playoff picture. As we have 2 weeks left to go, Seattle's going to get the top seed. Will the Saints earn the second seed? Well, they're going to have to beat Carolina to be able to do that, and then probably beat Tampa Bay. Philadelphia and Chicago, the other division leaders. Carolina and San Francisco, both 10-4, looming as very, very dangerous wild card teams at the present. Arizona still got a shot. Ditto Detroit, Green Bay, and Dallas. And a big win for Arizona in overtime to keep them alive and keep the pressure on the Saints, although the Saints beat them head-to-head, so they would have the edge in that tie-break situation. And I guess as you look at that, the Bears had a decision to make, Brian. They brought Cutler back, even though McCown had played well, so that was very important for them to have a guy step in and play well again. That was a decision Mark Trestman had to make, and it worked out well.
It did, and it didn't look like it was going to at first. I think Cutler struggled in the first half, but you know, hopefully, and Green Bay wants to get Aaron Rodgers back, so that Baltimore-Detroit game tonight's going to be pivotal in the NFC North.
Yeah, both of those teams, Baltimore and Detroit, fighting hard for playoff spots, Torrance, so that's an important game.
Oh, yes, it is. Detroit, you know, it's theirs to lose. It was theirs to lose. No, it still is theirs to lose, because if they win this game, Chicago is out because they have 2 games over Chicago right now. So their playoff hunt is in their hand right now.
And Green Bay won with Matt Flynn. He actually did a pretty good job. Of course, it was against the Dallas defense, so I guess that's enough said.
Well, you know, when he took over for Aaron Rodgers last year when they had him, you know, I mean, he came in and had about 400-500 yards in one game. So, you know, he proved that he can play football, and he liked that system. So I think he's a good backup quarterback. Plus, he's always been behind Rodgers. He knows the system.
Yes.
And Brian, I know Denver's good, but is there any doubt that Seattle's the best team in the league right now?
Oh, Lord. I tell you, yeah, and I'll tell you what, though, they've shown they can take that show on the road, too, though, Rick. You know, they intercept Eli 5 times yesterday, and I thought Tom Coughlin made an interesting statement. He said he appreciated those guys who prepared for this game, and he questioned those that didn't. So that's a big, tall statement from a Tom Coughlin right there.
And you watch some of those interceptions. I mean, that was, and I'm not trying to exonerate Eli, but most of those were just defensive backs wanting the ball more than the receivers. You're a receiver. You got to make a play on some of those balls.
Yes. When a quarterback gives you an opportunity to make a play, it's either you or it's no play at all. You just can't let a guy outfight you, out-physical you for a ball.
And that's what happens. And those guys are real good in Seattle. Sherman's really good. He's physical.
Well, it looked like to me the guys in New York, the Giants guys, look like to me they want to get their paycheck and get home for Christmas.
I agree with you. They already packed
They
up.
already quit.
Yeah, they packed up early.
And the coach pretty much said that, too.
Yes.
After the game. Is New England still a threat, Brian, without Gronkowski?
Ooh, I'll tell you what, they're not the same team. I guess, you know, you could say that about a lot of teams that lose a star offensive player, but he means so much to them in the red zone. He's a safety blanket for Tom Brady.
Because he would have caught that pass at that time.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, he would have caught that pass.
And those receivers. You know, because Tom Brady did what he had to do. Another thing, he gave a receiver an opportunity. You have to make those plays where you get those opportunities. They just haven't had those guys. That's the one thing Tom Brady means, that go-to guy. And with Gronkowski being down now, he's definitely, I don't think they're the same team.
And T, you know what, guys, I really think if you look at the Denver game Thursday night, Peyton missed Wes Welker badly. I mean, much like Brady misses Gronkowski.
But this is the first game you've seen that. All the rest of the game, Peyton been on cue with all the receivers and stuff. So this is probably the first game that he missed them. San Diego played him pretty well.
Absolutely, they played tremendously.
We'll take a time out here when we return in just a moment. Who's heading for the unemployment line or the bench? We'll get into that in our hot seat segment pertaining to the New Orleans Saints as we continue on sportsNOLAtv from Don Seafood in Metairie, 4801 Veterans, here on WHNO Channel 20. Our sportsNOLA.com trivia question of the evening pertains to Tulane. The Green Wave will play in its first bowl game since winning the 2002 Hawaii Bowl when they play in the Arnell Carriers New Orleans Bowl Saturday. Who was the last Tulane coach to lose a bowl game? Well, think about a guy that's no longer coaching Texas, Mac Brown. 1987 Independence Bowl in Shreveport, lost 24-10 to Washington. And now Brown has just finished up at Texas as he has stepped down. So an interesting stat, to say the least. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv from Don Seafood in Metairie, 4801 Veterans Boulevard. Come on by and get some phenomenal deals on gift certificates, and they have some great food at Don's for the holidays. It's time now for our hot seat segment. And each and every week, we have fun with it. And our hot seat segment is brought to you by Pride Services AC and Heating. Pride Services handles all your AC and heating needs. Since 1984, Pride Services skilled technicians have serviced and repaired all brands and models. They never charge for on-site estimates and pride themselves on fast, reliable service. Get out of the hot seat and call Pride Services. Pride Services will fix it right today, be here tomorrow, since 1984. Question: which player will lose his starting job first? Charles Brown or Garrett Hartley? Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan. This is a good question, Kenny. I've kind of vacillated on this, but I'm in keeping with my friend Torrance's code here. I'd say it's Charles Brown. And the reason I say that is because that left tackle position, of the two, Hartley and Brown, I would say that left tackle position is so important. You've got to protect Drew Brees for one. He's the franchise player. You've got to keep him upright, clean as many times as possible when he drops back. Here's the problem, and it's a major problem. Yesterday, Sean Payton brought Bryce Harris in at right tackle and moved Zach Strief over to left. Well, these football players know that now. Do you strengthen both positions or do you weaken both positions? And I think you probably weaken both positions by that. I don't think you're going to run into a Robert Quinn all the time. And look, he did a good job against Carolina for the most part, Charles Brown that is. So I don't know, maybe the game was an aberration. Personally, I don't think either one's going to lose his job, but of the two, I would say Charles Brown is more likely.
I don't know, what is my code? I'm trying to figure I'm trying to figure out what my code is. Well, I'm gonna say Harley. Right now, it's just too hard to put another tackle in right now. It's hard for a guy to move from the right to the left. That's a whole different technique that he has to go through. I think that is very difficult for a lineman to do and to go against guys a caliber of Quinn. And I will agree with what you said. Quinn is you're not going to have that every down. But Harley, this is a guy that's keeping points off the board for us right now. And points are very, very important coming in these last few games that we have. We need our points. If somebody's going to be gone, I think it would be him. We had hard enough time replacing these Pro Bowl offensive linemen that we lost in the previous years. And I think Brown is good enough, solid enough to finish off this season for us. He's shown that he can play the position throughout the year. We've been putting a lot of points up. I know he struggles some, but I don't think the answer, putting him down right now, is the answer right now. I think Harley is more likely to lose his job because he's keeping points off the board. We can go get anybody to come in right now and just miss some kicks right now if that's what he's doing. But I definitely think that Brown should keep his job. I think he should keep his job. The one thing you can do with Brown that you can't do with Harley, I can send somebody to help him. I can send a running back out to help Chip. I can have the tight end to help Chip. I can send some help with him to help him out so he can finish off the year. Harley, I can't put nobody out there. I could put a different holder, but he still has to kick. I can have a different snapper, but he still has to kick. So mine is Harley.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's our Super Bowl kicker, and he won the Super Bowl with him. I think that Coach kind of, he realized that he got to get these guys a pass for another week or two to see how they, going to come around. He think that they're going to come around, so he's very lenient with his team. He don't want to just get rid of nobody this time of the year. Those guys, they trying hard, and I think Coach will put up with them a little more and get them better, work with them hard and practice.
I know this, Brown held his own the 3 previous games, and again, this may have been an aberration, but at this stage of the season, guys, boy, you just can't afford to do that. One possibility maybe, Kenny, is to, Charles Brown has played right tackle before, maybe move him to right and Zach to left. I don't know if that's a possibility. I agree with you on that. T, you don't want to be screwing with this position right now.
No, and like I said, you can send help his way. You can shift the line. You can send help, running backs, tight end, and you can change the offensive line assignment.
I think, order in the court, I think personally that they'll both end up keeping their jobs. But if one is not going to keep his job, it's more likely to be Garrett Hartley, and here's why. Garrett Hartley kicks field goals only. He does not kick off. Thomas Morstead does that. And I think that's a very important consideration when you look at the big equation. You already have someone to kick off who's very good at it in Thomas Morstead. You're only asking a guy to make field goals, and you're only asking him to make the field goals that you're supposed to make, such as inside of 50 yards. But in this case, how about inside of 40 yards? You've missed 4 field goals inside of 40 yards this year. And in the NFL, particularly indoors, that's inexcusable. You must make field goals from inside of 40 yards, and they simply aren't doing it enough to be able to warrant keeping this guy much longer. I admire him. He's done a great job here previously, but the kicking game is all about what you've done for me lately. And in the NFL, kickers have to make 80% or better of their kicks to stick around, and they've got to make those kicks inside of 40 yards. Clearly, they were concerned a couple of weeks ago. He settled them down, and obviously they're back concerned again. As for Brown, clearly the jury's out on him. Armstead's not ready to play, and I agree with Brian. I think by moving Zach Strief, you weaken 2 positions. Therefore, I think they stick with Brown and give him another chance next week to see how he does. He fared well enough against Carolina last time around, but obviously moving forward, this entire offensive line needs to be reshaped because you're not going to win a Super Bowl with this group, at least not in my opinion. We'll take a time out here. We'll continue to talk college and high school football in just a moment when we return with sportsNOLAtv from Don Seafood in Metairie on WHNO Channel 20. College football at its best forthcoming, and of course you can follow it all at sportsNOLA.com. Best site on the web 24/7, Louisiana sports. You'll be bowl centraling at sportsNOLA.com. And it all gets started right here in New Orleans with what should be a very good contest. It is the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. The Tulane Green Wave at 7-5, and the Raging Cajuns of UL Lafayette at 8-4. And that's this Saturday at 8 p.m., the 13th annual New Orleans Bowl, this coming Saturday at 8 p.m. It's Tulane's first bowl appearance since 2002, and the first bowl matchup of Louisiana schools. And we're looking forward to it, Tulane and Louisiana Lafayette, this coming Saturday. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv. All right, the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Brian. Again, last year UL beat Tulane 41-13. I don't think it's going to be that way this time around.
No, and I'll tell you what, with ULL possibly missing Terrence Broadway, their starting quarterback, he's still recovering from a broken right arm. And I think they've got a redshirt freshman that's waiting in the wings. They call it the hack attack. So we'll see what happens there. But you know what? I'm anxious to see this game. One, it's 2 good state college football teams, and hopefully there'll be a great crowd. I mean, 50,000 plus. Be fun to watch.
Yes. Oh, I think it's going to be a great game. I think one thing Tulane will be able to bring to this game is defense. Their defense has been playing very well this year. I expect them to go and give the Cajuns a run for their money, and hopefully offense we can get some points on the board there, make a great game out of it. I'm like Brian. I just want it to be a great crowd, great game. It'll be great for the city.
I'll tell you what, it'll definitely be great for the city because you got a lot of young guys, man, trying to make up their mind whether to go to Tulane or go somewhere else. And they'll see what kind of quality of football that Coach putting out there now. And I think Coach Johnson's doing a great job. So I would take my hat off to him in the season that he had. And a lot of the young men who kind of think about going to Tulane or other schools, I think that's a great school to go to right here in the state. Plus, they're a small academic school.
I think the injury to Broadway is very significant when it comes to making a decision about who's going to win this game. I think certainly that's going to hurt UL. They're very good offensively, but when your quarterback gets hurt like that, it makes it very, very tough, Brian. And I think that will certainly aid Tulane, but Tulane's got to find some offense.
They do, and you know, go back to the crowd, Kenny, for just a second. I just hope this. We know that UL is going to bring people. I just hope that Tulane brings its fair share as well. And so it's not just a dominant Cajun crowd in there. I think it should be, hopefully it's equal. We'll find out.
I'll be there.
Good.
All right, I'll be there too.
Hey, I'll be there.
There we go.
We just received some tickets. My whole basketball team will be there.
All right.
Wow.
Bring the basketball
That a
team.
boy.
We won a tournament, won a basketball tournament. They had a special with some tickets and T-shirts that they gave the kids, so we will be there.
All right.
Curtis, you better not go to Texas on us, neither.
I think we'll be safe there. All right, so it is the 13th annual R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. And it's this Saturday night at 8 p.m. in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. It's the first all-Louisiana matchup in bowl history as the Tulane Green Wave takes on the Raging Cajuns of UL Lafayette. Visit NewOrleansBowl.org for tickets and information on all of the week's activities, including the free Friday night concert with the Charlie Daniels Band and Travis Tritt. The New Orleans Bowl, Saturday, 8 p.m. Look forward to it. Of course, LSU gets Iowa in the Outback Bowl. Sugar Bowl has Alabama and Oklahoma among some of the other matchups that are of interest to us, so we'll keep an eye on that. And now it's time to turn our attention to high school football and our announcement of our R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Greater New Orleans quarterback, sportsNOLA.com and WHNO Channel 20 and WGSO 990 AM Prep Player of the Year. And it's never easy to pick one guy, but we got him. Leonard Fournette of St. Augustine, the running back, rushed for 1,802 yards and 16 touchdowns, 42 catches, 745 yards, 4 scores, 322 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 748 return yards. Probably the best player in the country and hotly recruited and a terrific young man. When we presented him with the award of the Greater New Orleans Quarterback Club, he graciously decided my award belongs to Eugene Wells of East Jefferson. And he handed it to Eugene and got a standing ovation. Just a very unselfish act by a very unselfish young man, Brian.
Kenny, that's outstanding. And I'll tell you what, I can't remember the last time when a local player, there was so much interest on where he's going to select a school, where he's going to play at the next level. I know you guys have good information. Where do you all think he's going to go?
Pretty special young man.
Yeah.
Tulane.
We'd love for him to go to Tulane.
Where do you think he's going to go?
LSU, I think,
Yeah,
is the most likely scenario for him. I think LSU's got a great shot at him. So we'll see. Now, of course, it was state championship weekend in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. The John Curtis Patriots in search of a 26th state championship, and they got it, and did they ever. And they got just a terrific run from Raekwon James, who had a couple of big plays in this game. That broke a scoreless tie in the second quarter. Kenny Young, that's a special young player. Manny Miles, Les Miles' son, the quarterback for U High. And what a play by Hunter Dale here, the junior, who's another outstanding prospect. But he's got another year at John Curtis. A lot of people thought this game would be close. I did not, but I certainly didn't expect them to shut out University High. Brian, this was just a dominant performance by John Curtis, in particular on defense, and without Malachi Dupree, their blue chip wide receiver.
Kenny, did this game turn on, you were there, did this game turn on a fake punt? Or a fake, was it something like that?
I don't think it turned at all.
At all? You think it was
They
just...
scored before the half to make right there on the last play of the half to make it 13-0, but they shut them out.
Yeah.
I mean, University wasn't going to score on them. It's that simple. Rummel wins a second straight state championship. The Raiders in a thriller, 23-22 over Bird in Division I. What a program, what a coach in Jay Roth. The Division III championship, Calvary Baptist mismatch with Archbishop Hammond. And Vermilion Catholic in Division IV mismatch with St. Frederick. And then the East Jefferson Warriors and the Endicott Cougars, all local matchup. Eugene Wells scrambles, Eugene Wells throws, Ronald Green touchdowns. That's the big one. Got him even in the game at 28-28. And then the defense took over. Speedy Knoll, not one of his better games. Scrambling, holding that ball loose. Fumble! And the Warriors recover. And that's going to set up the go-ahead points in this game. And then East Jefferson salts it away. Jamal Veazey, what a play. He gets a pick, but he's not satisfied. Nice jump there. He makes it a pick six. EJ wins it 38-28. Their first state championship ever. 5A, Acadiana scored 77 on Parkway. We mentioned East Jefferson's win. A thriller in 3A and overtime. Union Parish beat Livonia. 2A, it was a good game. Kinder upset Manny, the 1 seed. And in 1A, unbeaten Haynesville stayed that way. They beat Mangum. Just another great weekend in the Dome, although it took 3 days, Brian, a little bit longer than anticipated.
Kenny, got a question. With the select and non-select, East Jefferson, would they have won a state championship had they combined?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
No
Good.
doubt.
That's even better.
About 15 seconds. Brian, Saints, Panthers, what do you think?
I'm sorry. I like the Panthers at home.
I understand. Brian, it's always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you,
my friend.
It's always a pleasure, man.
Thanks.
Great to have you
Always
with
a
us.
pleasure to be with you guys.
And we'll take a time out here. When we return in just a moment, we'll be joined by Joanna Doherty of Don's Seafood as we continue with Sports NOLA TV on WHNO Channel 20. For 80 years, this family-owned restaurant has served you with a proud tradition of Cajun cuisine and fresh, delicious Louisiana seafood. It's Don's Seafood, which has stood the test of time because Don's is based on traditional family recipes. They're as mouth-watering today as they were when Don's first opened in 1934 under Don Landry. Come to Don's in Metairie between Clearview and Transcontinental. Call 889-1550. Prep Recruiting Insider Wednesday, 6 p.m. They'll break down the state championship games from the Superdome this past weekend with Renee Nato and Ro Brown. You won't want to miss PRI Wednesday at 6. The John Forcade Show Thursday night, 6 p.m. with Mike Detillier. They'll get you ready for the Saints and the Panthers this coming weekend at Charlotte on the John Forcade Show. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV from Don's Seafood in Metairie. Always a pleasure to welcome from Don's management team, Joanna Doherty. Joanna, great to have you with us. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
And speaking of Merry Christmas, great deals on gift certificates,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. If you buy $100 in gift cards, you get a free half gallon of our famous chicken gumbo. So that's definitely a good deal.
Half gallon. Could you
Half gallon.
Could you
Feed
handle
your
that,
family.
Torrance?
Oh, I can handle a half gallon.
Yeah?
What I don't eat, freeze.
That's the way to do it. That's what you do for
all
the
good.
holidays. Right.
Ricky, you like what you had today, right?
I had the crab bisque. I tell you, I love
Oh, that's
that.
good.
You know, man, the corn and crab, and nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth. Where's my gavel? It's all
Don't
good.
fight over it now.
He
Don't
always gets
fight.
a large bowl. He always gets a
Absolutely.
large bowl.
Joanna, you got all kinds of opportunities for functions here because you got 2 private
do.
rooms now that people can utilize.
We do. We're in one right now. It's a beautiful renovated room, and we have the other one as well. And we still have some openings if you want to come in and book it for your holiday party.
And the way you've opened up the dining room now, the bar area connects to the dining room. You can dine in either one comfortably. It's a wide open space as compared, frankly, to the way it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. That way everybody can see each other. It's a beautiful renovation that we did. The char grill is up and running, so come check it out.
Nightly specials Monday through Friday,
We do 5 to 9 p.m. We have a different special every night.
and all good too.
Oh yes.
I like the
definitely.
ball shrimp. That's Thursday
All
night.
you
I
can
believe,
eat
yeah.
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. I got it. And Torrance doesn't mind those either, right?
The char grill.
Oh, as good as it gets.
I can get a dozen right now.
Oh, come on, man. I like the hot sauce in the background. Can't eat anything without it. It's automatic. So, Don's Seafood in Metairie. Final thought, Joanna, about the Christmas season and what people can do and what they're going to do if they come over here.
Well, you're going to get a good meal with your family. We can take reservations for Christmas Eve, leading up to Christmas Eve. So, whenever you want to come in.
All good. Joanna, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Keep
Thank
up
you,
the great
guys.
work.
Good to
Merry
see you.
Christmas to you. The Saints and the Panthers coming up this coming Sunday. Real quick, Ricky. Saints or Panthers?
Saints. I mean, I'm always go with the Saints. I tell you what, they got a lot of pretty girls over here too. I'm 75.
Torrance?
Ricky would know. See?
All right.
I'm with the same
All right, guilty until proven innocent. I'll take Carolina. Want to thank Ricky, want to thank Torrance and Joanna, thank Brian as well. Now, this is Ken Trahan. Thanks for joining us. Be a good sport. God bless you one and all. Rounding third and heading home. So long.